Okay. This is session 8. And I believe in session 7 I said we were finishing up the first chapter, but this time I mean it. Okay. This will be the last section. Should be relatively short, but yeah. Okay, here we go. The title of this is called Distortions of Miracle Impulses. Distortions of Miracle Impulses. All right. Your distorted perceptions produce a dense cover over miracle impulses, making it hard for them to reach your own awareness. The confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. Physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses. All real pleasure comes from doing God's will. This is because not doing it is a denial of self. Denial of self results in illusions, while correction of the error brings release from it. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external, all right? With anything outside the mind. All right? So remember early on in the sessions, I told you that Dr. Wapnick was used to, and he loved to relate the Course to a symphony, all right, in which the themes are stated, and then they're repeated in different ways, all right, different tones, different keys, different musical instruments, different. So with the Course, different words, different metaphors, all right, will be used to say the same things over and over again. All right? And I believe that was I don't know if it still exists in psychological terms, and Helen Schuckman was a master clinical psychologist. There was a term called overlearning. I don't know where it began, where it might have not even emanated from the psychological community. It could be from the educational community 300 years ago, where you just keep stating the same things over and over again until it sinks in. Okay, so this is part of what the Course does. It repeats. It announces the themes, and then it repeats over and over again. All right? And this first sentence does that. Your distorted perception, right? Once I decide that I believe I separated from God, my perception is distorted. And it produces a dense cover over miracle impulses, right? Making it hard for them to reach your own awareness. So the ego thought system makes it difficult for the corrected thought system to reach our awareness. Right? The confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. Physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses, right? Because we have an impulse to do something, right? To join with people, all right? That's a major, physical impulse is to join with someone, and we have all different concepts of what joining means. And that's an impulse. We figure we want to be with someone. We want to be with a group. We want to be, with whatever. Right? So that's an impulse that we have to be joined with our Father. Right? To be joined with the Creator. Right? And it's a misdirected impulse when it comes into the realm of physicality. Right? And he reminds us that all real pleasure, right, all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. And what is God's will? God's will is extending love, letting love come through you in this world. But in reality, in the oneness, we are extensions of love, and that's what we do. We extend. That's the will of God, that you be very happy doing that. All right. So all real pleasure comes from doing God's will. And that is because not doing that, not extending, not being one with the creation, extending love, not doing that is a denial of who you really are. All right? And that's because not doing it is a denial of self. And denial of self results in illusions. Once again, saying the same thing in different words. The denial of who you really are. Turning your back on heaven, so to speak, is a denial of who you are. Right? And it results in illusions. It results in the ego world. And every part of the ego world, including other constellations, other planets, stars, vapors, levels of existence. Some people say, well, you have many lives, but they all exist at once. Even that is part of the illusion. All right? And it can all come together, and all can, it can all be useful, actually. All right? I'm not saying to deny what we believe at this moment. We're here. So we have to deal with it. And if we deal with it with help from Jesus, from Holy Spirit, it makes things easier. It makes things come together and heal. Right? The split mind has to heal. Right? So not believing that you are the Christ, as we said in the last session, that you are the extension of love from the original source, not believing that results in illusions. Right? While correction of the error brings release from the error, brings release from it. So the miracle, which helps us to see correctly, the atonement is the correction of the error. I committed a sin, I left God. No, you didn't. That's the correction. Right? But we have to come to that awareness. We have to be brought, so to speak, to that awareness. All right? The correction of the error of believing I'm separate, brings release from the results of the error. So it brings release from the illusions. All right? He says, but don't deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external, with anything outside of the mind. He says, don't fool yourself. All right? That you can relate peacefully to God or your brother with anything outside of the mind, with anything outside of corrected thought. All right? That's a pretty firm statement, And like I say, it comes early on in the first chapter, but you'll see at the end of this section, Jesus will remind Helen that really look at these early chapters, look at these early statements. They're very important because they're going to prep you, they're going to prepare you for what's to come. And a lot of things, so you don't get afraid. So you don't think that, I'm lost in the ego forever. Things like that, or I'm going to disappear. Take these things in. Study these notes, he said to Helen. Study these notes. All right? So that everything just comes easily as you go through the book, and the words will disappear eventually, and then you become the message of the Course in Miracles. You become the Course in Miracles. All right? So, child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Do not forget this. That's what we were created to do. That's our purpose, is to create the holy, to extend what was given to us. All right? The love of God, for a little while, must still be expressed through one body to another. All right? So he said, look, I know where you are. I know where you think you are. So for a little while, that extension of love has to be expressed from one body to another. Right? Because vision is still so dim. All right? And that's another word, vision, the course will use. Between sight and vision, what you see, and vision, which is the awareness of oneness, the awareness of where you are in reality. All right, that's true vision. Okay, he says right now that vision is dim. Right, so you still have to express the love of God from one body to another. All right, in all different ways. You know, so because the vision is still so dim, you still believe you're here. All right, and we do. Start where you are. Okay. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception so you can achieve real vision, of which the physical eye is incapable. Learning to do this is the body's own true usefulness. He says that's what's really useful about your body, is that you connect with that memory of who you are in your mind, symbolized by Jesus and the Holy Spirit, or whatever symbol you want to use for non-duality and connection with that non-dual existence. All right? And this body, he says that's what the body's useful for, is to get to that awareness. All right? He says the physical eye is incapable of it. It's the mental. It's that we refer to the third eye. All right? It's just the mind. It's not any place. All right? So, paragraph 3. Fantasy is a distorted form of vision. All right? Fantasies of any kind are distortions, because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Right? So fantasy is the distorted form of vision, and that's what we are engaged in. That's where we find ourselves. Right? Vision, which is the awareness of where we are truly in heaven, at home in heaven with our Father, at home in heaven with the Creator, just extending abundance and love and happiness. Right? That's where we are. Right? But the belief that, no, I'm not, I separated, that creates the fantasy. All right? So fantasy is a distorted form of vision. Fantasies of any kind are distortions because they always involve twisting perception into unreality. Actions that stem from distortions are literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. So any actions that stem from this distortion of reality, they're literally the reactions of those who know not what they do. And that's lifted from the New Testament, where Jesus, they have Jesus looking down during his crucifixion and saying, "Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do." And this is what he's talking about. He says, look, they have distorted fantasies of reality. They don't know what they're doing. All right? And so everybody's running around this earth, right? And whatever other planets they run around on, with the fantasies, distorted visions. Okay? But they don't know what they're doing. It's that's as harsh as Jesus is going to get. They just don't know what they're doing. Okay? All right. So, fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. Right? Twist reality in any way, and you are perceiving destructively. Right? So fantasy is an attempt to control reality according to false needs. Now, because I believe I'm not with my father anymore, and now, as a matter of fact, I believe my father's angry at me, now I have all kinds of needs. I have a body that needs something immediately from the point of conception. My body needs something, right? And until it, dries up and blows away, it needs something, right? And that's the fantasy. We run around trying to supply those needs. And it's an attempt to control reality according to false needs. So my distorted perception gives me a false reality, so to speak. So I have to run around trying to control that. Right? You have to do all kinds of things to protect yourself. Everything, if you think about it. Just about every move we make is to protect ourselves somehow, right? To control that fantasy. Okay. Twist reality in any way and you are perceiving destructively. So you twist the idea of who you really are in any way and you're perceiving destructively, right? It's as if you destroyed heaven. Now you feel bad about that. Now you think you're going to get punished for that, right? But it's not true. All righty. Fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. Right. But although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. You believe in what you make. If you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle receiver. Fantasies become totally unnecessary as the wholly satisfying nature of reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. Reality is lost through usurpation, which produces tyranny. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. All right? So, as he's telling us here, fantasy is a distorted form of vision, and it's an attempt to control reality according to false needs. All right? So fantasies are a means of making false associations and attempting to obtain pleasure from them. Somewhere in psychology they say that, the human existence is about avoiding pain and attaining pleasure. All right? So, you can think about it. There's a lot of us are involved in those activities on a daily basis. Okay? Avoiding pain and attaining pleasure. All right? And so we form associations in order to do that. All kinds of relationships. You get a relationship with this, that, or the other thing to avoid pain. And you get a relationship with this, that, or the other thing to accrue and enjoy some pleasure. All right? Whatever is pleasurable to you, whatever helps you avoid pain, we establish relationships with those things. All right? Be it physical or non-physical. People form associations with drugs for years. Centuries. All different types of things in order to feel pleasurable and avoid the pain, whatever pain they were in, emotional, physical. So and he says these are all distorted realities to begin with, distortions of reality to begin with, and then we make up stuff in order to deal with the made up stuff, the made up pain, the made up ideas of pleasure. We make up stuff to fulfill those needs. All right? Now, I'm not minimizing anybody's experience of pain. All right? Let's not skip steps. All right? If you are in pain, you deal with it, please. All right? I'm just saying, according to the Course, one thing we can do is ask to have our perception of the pain corrected. How can I see this correctly? Right? This will help to minimize our feelings of, being victimized by the pain, or however we feel about the pain. Because as we've been saying, start where you are. The truth is, we believe we're in this body. But Jesus is saying, ask me to help you find a way to deal with this. All right? Each thing will be used as a classroom to bring you to the greater awareness of who you are. All right? So don't deny how you feel. And I'm not trying to minimize how anybody feels, and I'm not trying to make you feel guilty for being in pain. All right? Just start where you are and ask, how can I see this correctly? How can I perceive this through the eyes of peace? All right? So, but although you can perceive false associations, you can never make them real except to yourself. All right? You believe in what you make. All right? So if I believe this ice cream is going to help me, it's going to give me pleasure or help me, freeze an emotion or something, all right? Because you're going to believe it, all right? Because as they say these days, you're making stuff up, all right? But you'll believe it because you're making it up. It's you that's doing it, all right? So you have to believe in what you're doing. The strength of your conviction will then sustain the belief of the miracle. Well, he says, if you offer miracles, you will be equally strong in your belief in them. So if I ask for my perception to be corrected, he says, your belief in that will be just as strong. All right? And as you become more and more aware of your perception being corrected, and you start becoming aware of being that much happier and happier, right, and more peaceful, so to speak, all right, you'll be more and more convinced, all right, and it becomes stronger. All right, that reality becomes apparent to both giver and receiver. All right, reality is lost through usurpation. So reality, which is where I truly am with my Creator, in reality, it's, quote, in quotes here in the book, it's lost. It's not really, you don't lose it forever. You just forgot where you put it. But it's lost, right, through usurpation, which means now I sit on the throne. Now I could do the same things as God, right? Because I separated from God. I think I can do it. I think I could be on my own. All right. So reality to me is lost because I thought I could do it myself. All right. And it produces tyranny. Now I am guided by and subject to the ego thought system, right? Which is just a terrible dog-eat-dog, chaos and conflict thought system. It's you or me and the ego, right? And that's tyrannical. Right? And the ego is going to counsel me that says that guilt that you feel because you think but the ego, you turned your back on heaven. You destroyed it. You destroyed the oneness. Right? That guilt you feel about that, you'll feel better if you project that onto somebody else. All right? And so I enslave other people. You're guilty. You're guilty. All right? And I'm remaining a slave to the ego. As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. So if I keep pointing out people that are guilty, it's you, it's you, it's you. Or it's this thing that's hurting me. It's this thing that's making me uncomfortable. It's you that's making me uncomfortable. Right? He says, your release can't be complete. Right? So my release relies on releasing everyone from the guilt that I've been throwing around. Right? Just release them all. And that's part of what we say, in these sessions here, that, you become willing to become aware of your own innocence and allow everybody else to be the same. And I like to use the word happy. And I say to Jesus, I'm willing to be happy. Right? And I'm willing to let everybody else be happy too. Because my release is incomplete unless they're all released from their imprisonment of guilt. Okay? As long as a single slave remains to walk the earth, your release is not complete. Complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. Right? So my only goal is to have my mistake corrected. It's the atonement, to accept the correction for myself. All right? I believe I left my source. I need that mistake corrected. I need to accept that. And once I do, all right, the complete restoration of the sonship, all right, will be completed. It will happen. Right? And that should be my goal. No one is left out until I realize that we are all one. Right? And I realize who and what I am. I am a thought in the mind of God. All right? See, words, as Jesus even say, words are symbols of symbols. They're like twice removed from reality. Like even if we have that thought that touches the expansive nature of ourselves, that oneness, even if we have that thought, to put it into words, it is quite near impossible. It's impossible. People come close, but it's indescribable. So complete restoration of the sonship is the only goal of the miracle-minded. All right. Now we're beginning the last two paragraphs of the first chapter. And I have notes written in the book because Dr. Wapnick had told us that these two paragraphs were added later on. All right. They were not part of the original text, all right, but they were put in. All right? And what Jesus was telling Helen was that if you don't take the little steps, you'll be too afraid to accept what's going to be told to you later on. Right? You don't go from the world immediately into heaven. And he'll talk about the dream. He'll say, we're in a dream. All right? He says, a good parent, a good father doesn't just shake the kid and say, wake up, when he sees him having a bad dream. Get up, get up. No, gently. You gently wake the child or the person that's having the nightmare. All right, you gently let them know everything's okay. You're not alone. Don't be afraid. I'm with you. All right, you're here. You're here with me. You're not in that nightmare. All right, and you gently awaken. This is what Jesus does for us in the Course. Right? So, like Ken would always say, nobody goes poof. Right? Which is one of the fears that we have, which the ego says, no, you're going to die, you're going to disappear. Don't listen to this. Right? Ego has no idea what's being said. It just knows it's threatened by being diminished and eventually obliterated. All right? So we'll do these last two paragraphs here. Where he tells Helen, this is a course in mind training. Right? All learning involves attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of this course rest too heavily on these earlier sections not to require their careful study. Right? You will also need them for preparation. Without this, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on. A solid foundation is necessary because of the confusion between fear and awe, to which I have already referred, and which is often made. I have said that awe is inappropriate in connection with the sons of God, because you should not experience awe in the presence of your equals. All right? I believe, and someone who knows better can correct me if I'm wrong, that Helen had in a dream that Jesus came out and she knelt in front of him and he told her, don't, you don't have to kneel in front of me. I am your equal. I am your brother. All right? You don't need to do that. You can be awestruck in the presence of your Creator. All right? But you don't have to do that with me. All right? I'm here as your brother. I'm here to help you. All right? Because you should not experience awe in the presence of your equals. However, it was also emphasized that awe is proper in the presence of your Creator. I have been careful to clarify my role in the atonement without either over or understating it. I am also trying to do the same with yours. I have stressed that awe is not an appropriate reaction to me because of our inherent equality. Some of the later steps in this course, however, involve a more direct approach to God Himself. It would be unwise to start on these steps without careful preparation, or awe will be confused with fear, and the experience will be more traumatic than beatific. Healing is of God in the end. The means are being carefully explained to you. Revelation may occasionally reveal the end to you, but to reach it, the means are needed. All right? And for us that study A Course in Miracles, the means are, all the things that are stated in this book. And Jesus tells us in the beginning, this is not a book about love. This is a book about removing the blocks to the awareness of love. He says, love exists. You are that. You exist in that. Right? We're just trying to remove the blocks to that awareness. So Jesus spends a good amount of time in the Course in Miracles pointing out the dynamics and the beliefs and the comings and goings of the ego thought system, which when they start getting into it, it can get pretty harrowing, and you can start projecting guilt onto yourself. Oh God, this is what I do. I can't believe it. And then you start, you can really start feeling horrible, right? And he's telling you, this is why I'm telling you in the beginning, listen to what I'm telling you in the beginning, right? That you are at home in God. You are marvelous, as the comedian used to say, right? You are marvelous, right? You are a marvel. You are a wonderful thought in the mind of God, right? You have convinced yourself that you're not, right? And because you've convinced yourself you're not, you believe in all these horrible things that the ego tells you, right? At one point in one of the lessons, he says, you believe you are the home of evil, darkness, and sin. And if, somebody saw you truly, they would recoil from you as if recoiling from a snake. And if you think about it, some of us think about ourselves that way. Right? And he's telling you, listen to the foundations. Listen to the things I'm laying down here. And I will repeat over and over again for, 30 some odd chapters. I'm going to keep repeating it. Even when you feel bad, I'm going to give you a boost, remind you who you are. Right? And that's why he says this is a course in mind training. Which will mean that, and he had told Helen, you're just much too tolerant of mind wandering. You allow your mind to wander into the ego thought system, right? Which at one point he calls it the detour into fear. Right? I love that saying because it's a detour. It's like you'll get to where you're going, but you're detouring now into fear, right? And early on in this chapter, he says, fear, it doesn't really exist. All right, so he says, study these notes. Listen to what I'm telling you so that as we move along, you're not upset by what I'm going to tell you, and you're not afraid of God. All right? Some people would say to Ken, what about this person that they're, teaching this, that, and the other thing. They're distorting the message of the course and, the do, and whatever. And Ken would say, why are you getting upset? He goes, it's the way it happens. Ken would say the churches are already forming, although the course is not about churches or groups or anything. It's your individual relationship with your internal teacher, as they say. Right? But he would say, why get upset about whose teacher is saying what and this and that? He says, as long as their message is telling people, don't be afraid of God. Right? He says, what's so bad? Right? Don't be afraid of God. And that was one of my things with some of the young children in my family, if they would ask about God. At one point I tell them, because my relatives, they go to all different kinds of churches, There's Catholic churches, there's Greek Orthodox churches, there's Protestant churches, the Anglican church, all beautiful, they're all trying to tell you the same thing. That's what I always say. They're just trying to tell you the same thing. I said, the only thing you have to remember is that God is never angry. God is never angry, and He's never angry with you. Right? That's a good foundation. This is what Jesus is trying to prep us with. So we're not approaching a God that has to be feared. Whoa, the fear of God. He's saying you're approaching a Father that loves you. Right? And so he says, so study these notes. Pay attention. All right? And he reminds Helen Schuckman, this is the other way that you asked for. You always arguing and fighting and, bickering, and he asked for a better way. I mean, Bill Thetford said there has to be a better way of communicating. And Helen said, yes, I agree. I'm going to help you find it. And this was the result. 7 years of hearing this inner voice, this inner dictation, and bringing her along gradually. All right? He says, so pay attention to what I'm telling you, so you don't get afraid. All right? And that should do it. I should do it for session number 8. All right? And I'll see you soon. All right? Peace, love, and music, as they say in Woodstock. All right. Bye.